Okay, I hope you all turned back in. We're going live once again. All that I did that last whole lesson was in silence. So, I hope you all join me. Come back and join me. And thank you for letting me know about that. I should have read it sooner. Okay, here we go. Awesome. Thank you. I want to welcome those of you who are here tonight and to those who are joining us online. Today's Thursday, December 11, 2025, and I want to apologize for missing 2 months of Bible studies. As some of you may remember, I had a total knee replacement surgery on October 13, and trust me, I was in no shape to put together any lessons. A lot of pain. So today we'll be reading the book of 1 Samuel chapter 15 through chapter 19. 1 Samuel chapter 15. The prophet Samuel also said to King Saul, or Saul, he's not become king yet, "The Lord sent me to anoint you to be king over his people, over Israel. Now therefore listen to the voice of the words of the Lord. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, I remember what Amalek did to Israel, how he laid wait for him in the way, and when he came up from it, how he laid wait for him in the way when he came up from Egypt. Now go, Samuel, kill Amalek and utterly destroy all that they have. Don't spare no one. Kill both the men, the women, the infants, the suckling, the ox, and the sheep, the camel, the horse, absolutely everything. Samuel, you hear me?" So Saul gathered the people together and counted them at Telaim. And there were 200,000 footmen and 10,000 men of Judah. And Saul came to a city of Amalek and waited in the valley. And Saul said to the Kenites, "Go, leave, get away far away from here among the Amalekites, or I may accidentally end up destroying you along with them. For you have showed kindness to all the children of Israel when they came out of Egypt." So the Kenites departed from among the Amalekites. And King Saul killed the Amalekites from Havilah all the way to Shur, that is over against Egypt. But word but is never a good, almost never good. But he took Agag, the king of the Amalekites, alive, and utterly destroyed all the people with the edge of the sword. But Saul and the people spared Agag, and not just Agag, but the best of the sheep, the oxen, the fatlings, the lambs, and all that looked good, and would not utterly destroy them. So at this point, did he obey the Lord? That's right, he did not. They saved the fatlings, the lambs, and all that looked good, and would not utterly destroy them. But everything that was vile and refuse, that they utterly destroyed. Then came the word of the Lord to Samuel, the prophet, saying, "It makes me sick, sad, and sorry that I have set up Saul to be king, for he has turned back from following me and has not done what I told him to do." And it grieved Samuel, and he cried unto the Lord all night long. Samuel has a big heart. And when the prophet Samuel rose up early in the morning to go meet Saul, someone had told Samuel, "Saul came to Carmel, and behold, he set up a place and has gone down to Gilgal." And the prophet Samuel came to King Saul, and Saul said to him, "Blessed are you from the Lord. I have done what the Lord told me to do." Lie number 1. And the prophet Samuel said, "Then what is that noise I hear coming from the sheep and the lowing of the oxen that I hear?" And Saul said, "They have brought them from the Amalekites, for my people have spared the best of the sheep, the oxen, to sacrifice unto the Lord thy God." Lie number 2. "But we did utterly destroy the rest." Lie number 3. Then Samuel said to Saul, "Stop! I will tell you what the Lord has said to me last night." And Saul said to him, "Please tell me." And Samuel said, "When you were young, Saul, were you not made head of the tribes of Israel? And the Lord anointed you king over Israel. And the Lord sent you on a journey. And he said, 'Go and utterly destroy the sinners, the Amalekites, Fight against them until they are totally destroyed. So why did you disobey the voice of the Lord, but did fly upon the spoil and did evil in the sight of the Lord? And Saul said to Samuel, Yes, I have obeyed the voice of the Lord. He's lying. And I have gone the way which the Lord has sent me. And I have brought Agag, the king of the king of Amalek, and have utterly destroyed the Amalekites. No, he didn't. But my people took for the spoil. Sometimes we'll lie because you think people don't know. How are they going to know? So you're going to lie to a particular person, but God knows. God knows when we lie, and lying's never good. Never. But my people took for the spoil sheep and oxen, the very best of the things which should have been utterly destroyed, so they could sacrifice to the Lord in Gilgal. And Prophet Samuel said, Do you think the Lord prefers burnt offerings and sacrifices more than obeying him? Behold, obeying God is better than sacrifice, and to listen to him more than fat rams. For rebellion, listen to this, if any of you are rebellious or stubborn, this is for you. For rebellion is like the sin of witchcraft, and stubbornness is as iniquity and idolatry. And because you have rejected the word of the Lord, he has also rejected you from being king. And King Saul said to the prophet Samuel, I have sinned, for I have transgressed the commandment of the Lord and your words, because I feared the people and I listened to them instead. In other words, when I'm telling you, you think you could talk to some people and lie about it and think you're going to get away with it, but you know what? The Lord tells on you every time. So he wants a perfect people. So of course he's going to chastise you. He's going to rat on you when you do things like that. And Saul said to prophet Samuel, I have sinned, for I have transgressed the commandment of the Lord and your words, Samuel, because I feared the people and listened to them instead. Now, therefore, I pray that you will pardon my sin and turn again with me, so I can worship the Lord. And the prophet Samuel said to King Saul, I will not return with you, because you have rejected the word of the Lord, and the Lord has rejected you from being king over Israel. And as the prophet Samuel turned around to leave, he grabbed his sleeveless coat, and it tore. And Samuel said to King Saul, The Lord has torn the kingdom of Israel from you today, and has given it to a neighbor of yours, someone who is better than you. And also the strength of Israel will not change his mind, nor repent for his actions. For he, God, is not a man, that he should repent. Then Saul said, I have sinned. Yet I pray you, please honor me now before the elders of my people and before Israel, and turn again with me, so that I may worship the Lord our God. So Samuel turned again to leave, and King Saul to leave King Saul, and Saul worshipped the Lord. Then the prophet Samuel said, Bring me Agag, the king of the Amalekites. And Agag came to Samuel cheerfully. See, he's a smart aleck king. And Agag said, Surely the bitterness of death has passed. And the prophet Samuel said, Just as your sword has made women childless, so shall your mother be childless among women. And Samuel cut Agag up into pieces before the Lord in Gilgal. Then the prophet Samuel went back to his home in Gibeah. And Samuel never came back to see King Saul again until the day he died. Nevertheless, Samuel mourned for King Saul, and the Lord repented that he had made Saul king over Israel. Chapter 16. And the Lord said to Samuel, How long will you mourn for King Saul, seeing I have rejected him from reigning over Israel? Fill your horn with oil, and go. I'm going to send you to Jesse the Bethlehemite, for I have provided me a king among his sons. And Samuel said, How can I go? If Saul hears about my coming, he will kill me. And the Lord said, Take a young cow with you, and if anybody asks, say, I have come to sacrifice to the Lord, and that's not lying. And call Jesse to the sacrifice, and I will tell you what you shall do, and who you shall anoint for me, him who I shall select to be the next king. And the prophet Samuel did that which the Lord spoke. And he came to Bethlehem. And the elders of the town trembled at his coming and said, Have you come in peace? And Samuel said, Yes, I have come to sacrifice to the Lord. Sanctify yourselves, he said to the elders, and come with me to the sacrifice. And Samuel sanctified Jesse and his sons and invited them to the sacrifice. And it came to pass, when they had come, Samuel looked at Jesse's son Eliab and said, Oh man, surely the Lord's anointed is right here in front of me. I mean, he's a tall guy and looks muscular, but the Bible doesn't say that he's tall and muscular, but this is the way Samuel saw this. He was probably tall. I'm saying he's probably muscular. But the Lord said to Samuel, Don't look on how nice looking they are or how tall they are, because I have not chosen this one. For the Lord sees not like man sees. For man looks on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on what's in their heart. Then Jesse called his next son Abinadab and made him walk in front of Samuel. And Samuel said, neither has the Lord chosen this one. Then Jesse made his son Shammah pass in front of Samuel. And he said, Neither has the Lord chosen him. Again, Jesse made the other 7 of his sons pass in front of Samuel. And the prophet Samuel said to Jesse, I don't understand. The Lord has not chosen any of these? And Samuel said to Jesse, Are all your sons here? And Jesse said, Well, I have one more. He's my youngest, but he's out taking care of the sheep. And Samuel said to Jesse, Send someone to go get him, for we will not sit down till he comes. So Jesse sent for him, and they brought him in. Now, Jesse's youngest son was a healthy, rosy-colored kid and was good-looking. And the Lord said, Samuel, get up, anoint this one, for he is the one. And Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the midst of his brothers, and the Spirit of the Lord came upon David from that day forward. So the prophet Samuel rose up and went to Ramah, where he lived. But the Spirit of the Lord departed from King Saul, and an evil spirit from the Lord troubled Saul. Now, most of you would say a devil came over Saul, or the devil did this. But the devil sent an evil spirit, but read it. People read it. An evil spirit from the Lord troubled Saul. And King Saul's servants said to him, Behold now, even they knew, an evil spirit from God is troubling you. Let our Lord, small l, command your servants who are here to look for a man who is experienced in playing the harp. And when the evil spirit from God comes upon you, he will play the harp and you will be well from that soothing music. So you people try to tell me it doesn't matter what kind of music you listen to. It matters. Think about it. The music you listen to, do you think you would share it with the Lord? And Saul said to his servants, Go, find me a man that can play well and bring him to me. Then answered one of the servants, saying, Behold, I have seen a son of Jesse the Bethlehemite that is cunning in playing, and he's a mighty valiant man and a man of war and wise in handling matters and a good-looking man. And the Lord is with him. Notice how this servant kept calling him a man. And he said he was a valiant man, which means he was a man of war. So that's not little boy David, like everybody shows us. This little boy David went out to fight this gigantic giant. But I won't say that he wasn't young. I'd say he was in his early 20s, maybe 19. He wasn't a little boy David, is all I'm saying. And so King Saul sent messengers to Jesse and said, Send me your son David, who is out attending to your sheep. And Jesse took a donkey and placed a bag on him, which had bread and a bottle of wine in it, along with a young goat, and sent them with his son David unto King Saul. Now you wonder why every time someone has a party, you feel guilty and you feel like you have to bring something. And it comes from the Word of God. Most stuff comes from the Word of God. Our mannerisms, our way of speaking, our way of talking, our way of living, our way of life. So this is why if you're invited to a party, take something. People bring me flowers. I don't really ever need anything, but it sure is nice when they do stuff like that. And Jesse took a young goat and sent them with his son David unto King Saul. And when David came to King Saul and stood before him, King Saul loved him greatly automatically right away, and he became his armor bearer. And King Saul sent a message to Jesse saying, "Please let David stay here with me, for he has found favor in my sight. I like this kid." And it came to pass, when the evil spirit from God was upon King Saul, David took a harp and played with his hand until King Saul was refreshed and felt a lot better, was well, and the evil spirit left him. Now, before we go to chapter 17, in this next chapter, we have an excellent example of how God will be with you in times of trouble if you can hold fast to believing Him for that. Okay? And better than that, you believe it so much that becomes a way of life in your life to believe, to have faith. Chapter 17. Now, the Philistines gathered together their armies to battle at Shocho, which belonged to Judah. And they pitched their tents between Shocho and Azekah in Ephes-dammim. And King Saul and the men of Israel were gathered together, and they pitched their tents by the valley of Elah. And they set the battle in array against the Philistines. And the Philistines stood on a mountain on one side, and Israel stood on a mountain on the other side, and there was a valley between them. And there went out a champion out of the camp of the Philistines. His name was Goliath from Gath, who was 9 feet 9 inches tall. That's almost as tall as my 10-foot ceilings. And I mean, oh my goodness, I need a huge ladder to get all the way up there. And he had a helmet made of brass on his head. And he was armed with a coat of mail, which are loops of chain and metal rings, and a cover which was the shell of a large turtle. And the coat weighed 166 pounds of shekels of brass. And he had leg armor worn below the knees that was made of brass, and a target of brass between his shoulders. And the staff of his spear was like a weaver's beam, and his spear head alone weighed 600 shekels of iron. And one bearing his shield went before him. And he stood and shouted out to the armies of Israel. And he said, "Why have you bothered to set your battle in array? Am I not a Philistine? And you are servants to King Saul. Choose you a man from among you that I will come down and fight with. If he is able to fight me and kill me, then we will be your servants. But if I prevail against him and kill him, then you shall be our servants and will serve us." And the Philistine said, "I challenge the armies of Israel this day. Give me a man that we may fight together." When King Saul and all Israel heard those words of the Philistine, they were troubled and greatly afraid. Now David was the son of Jesse, the Ephrathite of Bethlehem, Judah, and Jesse had 8 sons. And Jesse's 3 eldest sons went out to battle for King Saul, and they followed him in battle, and their names were Eliab, the firstborn, Abinadab, and Shema. And David was the youngest. But that day, David had left King Saul to go feed his father's sheep at Bethlehem. And the Philistine giant came near morning and evening to present himself 40 days. And Jesse said to his son David, "Take your brothers an ephah of this parched corn and these 10 loaves of bread, and run to the camp where your brothers are. And give the captain these 10 cheeses, and check and see how your brothers are doing." Now King Saul and his army were in the valley of Elah fighting with the Philistines. And David got up early that morning and left the sheep with the keeper and took the victuals to his brothers like his father told him, because he was a good kid, very well behaved and very well mannered and very obedient. When David arrived at the battlefield as the army was going out to fight, they shouted for the battle. For Israel and the Philistines have put the battle in formation, army against army. And David left his carriage in the hand of the keeper of the carriages and ran into Israel's army and came and greeted his brothers. And as he was talking with them, behold, there came the champion Philistine of Gath, Goliath was his name, out of the armies of the Philistine, and spoke according to the same words he said every day. And David heard him. And all the men of Israel, when they saw Goliath, they ran from him and were very afraid. Chickens. And the men of Israel said, have you seen this man that has come up to defy Israel? And it shall be that the man who kills Goliath, the king will make him rich with great riches, and will give him his daughter to marry, and will make that man's father's house free from serving the king. And David spoke to the men that stood by him and said, excuse me, what will happen to the man that kills this Philistine and takes away the reproach from Israel? For who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should dare defy the armies of the living God? And the people answered David, saying, so shall it be done to the man that kills Goliath. And Eliab, Jesse's oldest son, heard David speaking to the men. And Eliab got mad at David, his youngest brother, and said, why have you come here? Who did you leave with the sheep? I know your pride and your naughtiness of your heart, for you have come down just to see the battle. And David said, what did I do? Is there not a cause? And he turned from looking at his brother and looked at one of the soldiers and asked him the same questions. And the people answered him again in the same way. And when David had asked the question, the soldiers went and told King Saul, and the king sent for David. And David said to the king, Don't let your soldiers fear because of Goliath. I will go fight with this Philistine. And King Saul said to David, you can't fight Goliath. You are too young, and Goliath is a man of war, and he's been a man of war since his youth. And David said to King Saul, I took care of my father's sheep when a lion and a bear took a lamb from the flock. And I went after them and attacked them and took the lamb from their mouth. And when he came at me, I caught him by his beard and beat him till he died. I was able to kill both the lion and the bear. And this uncircumcised Philistine is no better than them, seeing he has defied the armies of the living God. Nobody should defy the armies of the living God. David continued, the Lord who delivered me out of the paw of the lion and bear, he will deliver me out of the hand of the Philistine. And King Saul said to David, go, fight the giant, and may the Lord be with you. So King Saul gave David armor, and David put the helmet made of brass on his head. Saul also gave David a breastplate. David then strapped his sword on his armor and tried to leave. Instead, you see, everything was too heavy for him. Instead, David said to the king, I cannot use this armor because I haven't had a chance to test it. So David took off all that armor and he grabbed his staff and picked out 5 smooth rocks from the brook and put them in his shepherd's bag. And he held his sling in his hand and he went out to meet Goliath. And Goliath came out to meet him. And the man that was carrying David's shield walked in front of David. And when Goliath saw David, he belittled him because he was such a young kid and ruddy and not bad looking. And Goliath said to David, do I look like a dog that you should come at me with sticks? And Goliath cursed David by his gods. And Goliath said to David, come to me. I will give your flesh to the birds in the air and to the beasts of the field. And David said to the Philistine giant, you're coming to me with a sword and a spear and a shield, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, faith, and the God of the armies of Israel whom you have defied. Today, the Lord is going to deliver you into my hands, and I will kill you and take your head off and will give your carcass to the birds of the air and to the wild beasts of the earth, so that the whole earth may know that there is a God in Israel. You have enough faith to do something like that so people could watch? And all this assembly shall know that the Lord does not save with a sword and a spear. For the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into my hands, Goliath. And it came to pass when Goliath got up, he went closer to meet David. And David quickly ran toward the Philistine army to fight with Goliath. And David put his hand in his bag, took out a stone and put it in his sling and slang it round and round towards Goliath. And the stone hit Goliath in his forehead so hard that the stone sunk into his forehead, and the giant fell on his face to the ground. So David triumphed over Goliath with a sling and a stone. a sling and a stone, God was on his side. If you fear um, anything and you trust in God, trust in God. I'm going to tell you a quick story, real quick, about this young lady in Sunday school. And I had read the kids in Sunday school this lesson on how to have faith, and God will fight your battles for you. So she went to school the next day, and there's a girl that's been picking on her. And this girl started running towards her to start a fight. And lo and behold, she told me that girl hit the pole. I don't know, maybe a tetherball pole or the basketball pole, and knocked herself out. And you see what I'm saying? It still happens today. And God, God took care of that girl. So, therefore, David ran and stood on the top of Goliath, and he took Goliath's sword out of his sheath and cut off Goliath's head. And when the Philistines saw that their champion was dead, they started running. And the men of Israel and of Judah got up and shouted and chased after the Philistines until they came to the valley and to the gates of Ekron. And the wounded of the Philistines fell down by the way to Shaaraim, even to Gath and Ekron. And the children of Israel returned from chasing after the Philistines, and they spoiled their tents. And David took Goliath's head and brought it to Jerusalem, but he put Goliath's armor in his tent. Goliath's sword. And when King Saul saw David go forth against the Philistine, he said to Abner his captain, "Who is this young man's father?" And Abner said, "As my soul liveth, O king, I have no idea." And the king said, "Ask around who this boy's father is." And as David returned from the slaughter of the Philistines, Abner took David and brought him to King Saul along with the head of Goliath that he was still holding. And King Saul said to David, "Who is your father, young man?" And David answered, "I am the son of your servant Jesse the Bethlehemite." Okay, in chapter 18, you guys have any questions? In chapter 18, we're going to introduce you to Jonathan, King Saul's son. Also, I want you to note on how we should behave ourselves in all things through this chapter. Chapter 18. And it came to pass, when David finished talking to King Saul, that the soul of Jonathan was united with the soul of David. And Jonathan loved him as his own soul. I mean, right away. Remember when King Saul first met David, he fell in love with David right away? He has a really wonderful spirit about him. And now here's King Saul's son Jonathan, and he's done the same thing. He fell in love with David's soul. And King Saul took him that day and would not allow him to go home to his father's house. Then Jonathan and David made a covenant because he loved him as his own soul. They made a bargain or agreement between each other. They would love each other and be best friends forever. And Jonathan took off his royal robe and gave it to David along with his clothes. He even gave David his sword, his bows, and his girdle. And David went wherever the king sent him. And David behaved himself wisely. Highlight that. David behaved himself wisely. In other words, when we have to make decisions, think about it before you do it. If you have to go somewhere, think about it before you go. Make sure that the Lord is in it. And David and King Saul set David up to be in charge of the men of war. And David was accepted in the sight of all the people and also in the sight of King Saul's servants because he behaved himself wisely. Okay? He thought about things before he made decisions. I mean, I know, Sydney, you're listening. You are in school right now, and you have to make a lot of decisions, and you have to do a lot of studying. You know, make sure the Lord is in it with you, and He'll take you so far, girl. And it came to pass, as they came back from the slaughter of Goliath, that the women came out of all the cities of Israel, singing and dancing with joy to meet King Saul, with their tambourines and music instruments. And the women answered one to another as they played and said, "King Saul has slain thousands, and David has slain 10,000s. And when King Saul heard this, he was furious because that saying from the women displeased him. And he said, "They have given credit to David for 10,000, And me just thousands? And what else can he take from me but my kingdom? And King Saul watched David closely from that day forward. And the next day, that evil spirit from God came upon King Saul, and he prophesied in the midst of the house. And David played the harp for the king like other times. Only this time, the king had a javelin in his hand, and Saul threw that javelin at David so hard, thinking he would kill David even against the wall with it. And David escaped from the king's presence twice. And King Saul was afraid of David because the Lord was with him, and King Saul knew that, and that he also knew that the Lord departed from King Saul. Therefore King Saul sent David away from him and made him his captain over 1,000 soldiers. And David went out and came in before the people. And David behaved himself wisely in all his ways, and the Lord was with him, because he behaved himself wisely in everything. Wherefore, when King Saul saw that he behaved himself very wisely, he was afraid of him. But all Israel and Judah loved David, because he went out and came in before them. In other words, he's a very good example of the kind of a supervisor you would want to work for, or a very good example of the kind of supervisor you would like to be if you have a job. And King Saul said to David, "Behold, my eldest daughter Merab, I will give her to you to marry if you will be valiant for me and fight the Lord's battles." For King Saul said in his heart, "Don't let me be the one to have to kill David, but let the hand of the Philistines come against him and kill him for me." And David said to King Saul, "No, I'm a nobody. My life hasn't amounted to much for my father's family in Israel that I should be blessed to become the king's son-in-law." But it came to pass at the time when Merab, King Saul's daughter, was supposed to be given to David, that she was given to Adriel the Mahathalite to be his wife instead. What an evil king. And King Saul's other daughter, Michal, she loved David. And they told that to the king, and that pleased the king. So King Saul said, "I will give David her instead, so that she may be a thorn in his side, and that the hand of the Philistines may be against him." Wherefore Saul said to David, "You shall be my son-in-law as of today, and shall have one of my 2 daughters." And King Saul commanded his servants, saying, "Go talk to David secretly, and say, Behold, the king is happy with you, and all his servants love you. Now therefore be the king's son-in-law." And King Saul's servants spoke these words to David. Now, David's biggest concern is that back in those days, before you could marry, the guy had to come up with a dowry, like a bunch of money or a bunch of animals to give to the father of the bride. So David doesn't have much of anything, right? So King Saul's servants spoke these words to David, and David said, "Do you think it's not a big deal to be a king's son-in-law? Come on, seeing as I am a poor man and barely noticed." And the servants of King Saul told the king that this is what David said. And Saul said, "Go back and tell David that the king is not asking for a dowry from you, just 100 foreskins from the Philistines in order to be avenged from the king's enemies." But King Saul was thinking, this is a ridiculous request. The Philistines will kill him for sure over this, which is what King Saul was hoping would happen. And when Saul's servants told David, it pleased David very much that this is all he had to do to become Saul's son-in-law. It was no big deal to him because he knew God was on his side. Nothing's impossible for God. And God will use you if you believe it. So when Saul's servants told David, it pleased David very much that that's all he had to do to become Saul's son-in-law, and he had plenty of time to get it done. Wherefore David got up, he and his men, and they killed 200 Philistines, and David brought their foreskins, and he gave them to the king in full payment so that he might become the king's son-in-law. And Saul gave him Michal his daughter to marry. And King Saul saw and knew that the Lord was with David, and that Michal, Saul's daughter, loved him. And Saul was even more afraid of David to the point that Saul became David's enemy continually. The more he saw David, the worse he hated him. Then the princes of the Philistines went forth, and it came to pass, after they went forth, that David behaved himself more wisely than all the servants of Saul, so that his name was very much respected. Yeah, if you behave yourself well at a job that you're working at, you will be well respected. Trust me, I've been there, done that, and the Lord was with me and my husband while we worked for CDOT. Chapter 19. If you have any questions, we'll go to chapter 19. And King Saul spoke to his son Jonathan and to all his servants that they were ordered to kill David. But Jonathan liked David a lot, so Jonathan told David, "My father is trying to get you killed. Now, therefore, I beg you, watch your back till tomorrow morning and go hide somewhere, and I will go out and stand beside my father, the king, in the field where you'll be hiding. I'll talk to my father about you. Then I'll come back and tell you what I find out." And Jonathan spoke nicely about David to his father the king, saying, "I don't think you should sin against your servant David, because he has not sinned against you, and because his works have always been to please you. After all, he put his life in his hands when he went out to kill the giant Goliath. And the Lord brought a great salvation for all Israel. You saw it for yourself, and even you rejoiced, my father. Why then would you sin against an innocent man by having David killed for no reason?" And King Saul listened to Jonathan and swore, "As the Lord liveth, David would not be killed." And Jonathan returned to David and told him everything that he had discussed with his father. And Jonathan brought David to King Saul, and he stood beside the king as before. And there was war again, and David went out and fought against the Philistines and killed them with a great slaughter, and then returned to the palace. And the evil spirit from the Lord came upon King Saul, as he was sitting in his house with his javelin in his hand. So David came and played his music on his harp. But King Saul was thinking about hitting David into the wall with the javelin. But David managed to avoid the javelin and run and escape that night. King Saul also sent messengers to David's house to spy on him and have him killed in the morning. But David's wife, Michal, told David what was going on, and she said to him, "If you don't run and save your life tonight, my David, you'll be dead by morning." So Michal let David down through a window, and he ran and escaped. And Michal made up David's bed to make it look like he was still in bed. She even put a pillow of goat's hair to prop up his fake head and then covered it with a blanket. Now, a lot of us have done that before, haven't we? And when King Saul sent messengers to take David, Michal answered the door. She told the messengers that David was sick in bed. And King Saul sent the messengers again to bring David back to him, even if they had to carry him in the bed so the king could kill him himself. And when the messengers had come into David's house, behold, they saw the fake body in the bed with a pillow made of goat's hair. And King Saul said to Michal, "Why have you deceived me like this and have helped David to escape?" And Michal answered her father, saying, "He said to me, 'Let me go. Do you want to give me a reason to kill you?'" So David escaped to Ramah to see the prophet Samuel. And he told him all that the king had done to him. And he and Samuel went and stayed in Naioth. And it was told to the king that David is at Naioth in Ramah. And King Saul sent his messengers to take David. And when they saw a bunch of prophets prophesying, and the prophet Samuel was standing as appointed over them, the Spirit of God came upon Saul's messengers, and they also began prophesying. and when they told the king what had happened, he sent more messengers, and they also began prophesying. So the king sent messengers for the third time, and the Lord caused them to prophesy also. Then the king went himself to Ramah. Do you think? And he came to a great big well that is in Sichu, and he asked, "Where can I find the prophet Samuel and David?" And one person said, "They are at Naioth, which is in Ramah." And he went there to Naioth and Ramah, and the Spirit of God came upon the king also. the Spirit of God came upon the king, and he also prophesied on the way till he arrived in Naioth in Ramah. And he stripped off his clothes also and prophesied in front of the prophet Samuel. Then he laid down naked all that day and night. That's why they say, is King Saul also among the prophets? That concludes our lesson for today. Does anybody have any questions before I end the session? I will say I think there's another. I'm going to go back and check one more lesson before this one and see if it I know because one of these lessons only recorded for like 5 minutes. Thank you. Recorded for 5 minutes. So I'm going to go back and check and see which one that was, and I'll try to do that one over to you. So I pray God has spoken you through this lesson, spoken to you, through this lesson, and you were able to take something from it that would make your life better for God. After all, you are God's servants. I love you, everybody, and I pray you all have a wonderful and safe weekend. In case you don't know, this is a third time I've done this lesson because I did this once before, and it didn't go through at all. So, according to my notes, the next lesson will be on December 25th. However, that was Christmas Day, and I'm not sure if I had plans for the New Year, so we ended up after this lesson, January 8th. And we did that one, and then I'm going to go back and check on that other lesson, and see what I can find out. Thank you so much for Sydney and Amanda for joining me. I really appreciate that. I love you all, and have a wonderful and safe weekend. God bless.